Yo, I'm back. Apologies for my absence. Whoa, please pay attention. Yeah, I'm back. Been away for a little while, hibernating on a hiatus, kind of forced in one way and by choice in another, combination of two, a bit of a, I guess you could say, an unfortunate series of events, bit of illness and tech problems and just a bit of exhaustion from it all really, but life goes on, so I'm back and we'll carry on where I left off because that's the way things are, the way things have been and the way things are going. Kind of timeless how we're operating anyway. What I want to touch on today is kind of elaborating a bit further on where I was going on previous videos. One in particular was, what was it called? The attack of the overly vigorous lollipop lady. Kind of I went into it more in that video, questioning the need to build all this smart road system infrastructure when we're going through a so-called cost of living crisis, and just questioning the imbalance of priorities when they say we've got no money and they got all this money to build this digital prison all around us. Now, since then, we're now in, this is the first video of the year. We're now in 2023 and it's the 1st of March, so I'm springing back into action literally. It's still in the winter, but we're on the verge of spring, so this is my spring back, springing into action. It's just the way life rolls its way out, is certain things have all corresponded to today being the day. I didn't think I'm going to come back on the 1st of March, but that's the way it is. That's the way we're rolling now. So, but that's a bit of waffle. I didn't need to share that information. Basically, like I said, I want to talk about what seems to be quite a pressing issue that's coming about and coming into the forefront this year. Is the concept, well, not even a concept, it's the actual reality of the 15-minute city. Now, if you don't know what the 15-minute city is, or the 20-minute city, it's kind of basically it's your smart city. As always, it's being sold to you under phony pretenses. So if you go and look up a 15-minute city on Google, as always, you know, search engine optimization, the top searches are gonna be brought and paid for, because that's how you get at the top. It doesn't mean you're more valid, just means you got more money, and it's the man with the money that's pushing these agendas. And the 15-minute city is being sold to you as something desirable. I don't know where they're coming from, how they even believe their own bullshit, really, because even when they try and sell it as something desirable, it still stinks. It's not desirable, people. It's a prison. It's an open air prison. The idea of a 15-minute city, why it's called a 15-minute city, is the idea, and this is how they sell it to you, that everything you need will be within a 15-minute travel radius. Everything you need. So you're gonna have, you know, all your groceries, and I guess you can have like your entertainment and everything they consider you to need. Now, bearing in mind, these people that have this idea of everything you need are the same people that are saying that you're going to own nothing and be happy and that kind of thing. What they don't really go into detail in these from the horse's mouth descriptions of the 15-minute cities, what they don't say when they're selling you the idea of having everything within your 15-minute travel radius is that they're going to be trying to restrict you from going beyond that. And this premise is already being put into effect. It's coming everywhere basically, but I think they're trialing it in Oxford right now, and that's an interesting choice, Oxford. I think when you consider like the culture of this country and the the association that Oxford has, the big uni city. I've been to Oxford. It's a bit like Bath, and it's got all that kind of same sort of brickwork and architecture and that kind of stuff, and there's a certain class, I guess, out there, and I don't think that's by accident. I think that they know what they're doing. The Cookie Monster is out there, and you need to check your cookie settings, people, because they are profiling everybody and everything, and they know from all their data collection where they are best to try things and best not to try things, and where things are likely to succeed, when people are going to buy into it, where people won't. So I don't think it's a accident that they're starting off in Oxford. It seems to be like places like Cambridge as well. So on top of this concept of the 50-minute cities, you've got clean air zones rolling out everywhere. They've got the ultra low emission zone coming out in London, expanding. Now, these are all different forms of the same thing. It's restriction on your movement, restrictions on your freedom. This is why I'm here. I'm for free too. That's the basic premise of my show, is to fight for freedom. Not fighting freedom, fight for freedom. So I oppose this. I don't see any benefit whatsoever. I mean, they're selling it under the premise of that same nonsense, saving the world and climate change and all that rubbish. And I've gone into that on previous videos, and we'll be going on about that because this is the next phase of the agenda, as it always has been. Now let's just roll back to the scamdemic, the plandemic, whatever you want to call it. The same people pushing all this climate change, 15-minute city, zoned out rubbish is the same people that was pushing all the plandemic, scandemic kind of action. The World Economic Forum, it's the same Bill and Melinda Gates, all these kind of peeps. And remember Klaus Schwab, the CEO, owner, whatever he is, of the World Economic Forum, come out with the COVID-19 Great Reset book, which came out within like a couple of days. He wrote his book fast when the pandemic hit. Man must be like Clark Kent with his typewriter, and he's definitely he brought out fast how COVID-19 presented a great opportunity to bring about the thrust into the digital fourth industrial revolution, that kind of thing. Basically, COVID-19 gave them all the excuses they need to move us into the digital age, next level, which is the digital smart prison nightmare that they want to build for us. Digital IDs and zones everywhere, monitoring your every move, and penalizations for not playing ball. Like I said about trying to stay on track, because you can easily drift, but it is all connected. The Oxford trials, basically, of these 50-minute cities are being presented and in conjunction with climate lockdowns. So, I said about the COVID-19, the scamdemic. Remember when they was bullying everybody with this psychological warfare, and they was trying to push the whole get your jab if you want your freedom back? Remember? That was basically their line. That was basically their sales pitch. If you want your freedom back, get the jab. That's what they were saying. I remember watching some football one time, and there was an advert in between, because this is the only time I get exposed to adverts. I didn't watch TV. I was watching the football, and in the commercial break in between, and I notice all the commercial breaks pretty much, because I don't watch adverts, when I watch that little bit of TV and I get exposed to it, every advert seems to be about 5G, and basically all the adverts are pitching this digital revolution in different forms. But there was an advert, literally, come on, must have been about 4 seconds, and some voice said, in that same voice I just used, get the jab. That was it. It just said, get the jab. And if that's not some psychological coercion, bullying tactic, I don't know what is. Get the jab. So remember, use getting the jab for your freedom. And now, after going through all that, and you know, for whatever reason, they seem to have sort of slacked with that a bit. Maybe it wasn't working, but I think you can see I was always paving the way for this. And now, all those people that took their jab to get their freedom back, I've got to ask you, how do you feel? Because now they're taking your freedoms away anyway, under the guise now of climate change, which is a really ambiguous term and really vague, and gives them license to, well, what's climate change? Climate changes, doesn't it? Does the climate not change? Is the climate not always changed? What makes them so sure that we are to blame for this? It's not a proven science, regardless of what they are trying to push. And I'm not going to go into that detail, but that's there to be explored, and I strongly suggest you do, because it's fundamental to understanding the true nature of things and the scam, once again, that is being pushed upon us. Lost my train of thought. So yeah, these 50-minute cities, they're going to tie in with the digital IDs, they're going to tie in with digital currency, and it's all going to be connected. And they're going to be trying to restrict your movement, and you're going to have to apply for permits to leave your designated zones. So this is a straight up dystopia. You know, on that term, dystopia, I was chatting to my lad the other day, having a nice conversation with him. I tried to a point, you know, we try and keep him clued in to a point without just, it's hard to get that balance of like shattering his reality, because it's kind of the nature of things. But that's how I can give that balance. If I'm going to allow him to, you know, consume all the shit and all the propaganda, all the brainwashing out there, I've got to give him that balance of at least. That's if you watch a film that's PG, PG is parental guidance. And a lot of films that are PG that I think are questionable, but I go on that basis, it's parental guidance. And I'll let him watch a 12, I'll let him watch the Marvel films, which I think are absolute propaganda for technocratic Satanism, for a lack of a better term, transhumanism, eugenics. If you want to pick apart the Marvel cinematic universe and the common denominator through it all, that is the theme. The theme is transhumanism, the theme is population control, the theme is eugenics, because the common denominator in all the film is Thanos, and Thanos is a eugenicist. Simply, that's what he's doing. He's trying to weed out the good from the bad and create a harmony through balance, which means culling half, or not even half, culling a mass population. So, you know, read between the lines a little bit there, but that's another conversation. I've mentioned it before, and I'll be mentioning it again, because that's a big topic to discuss there. Like I said, it's hard to stay on track. Oh yeah, so my son mentioned we was having a conversation, and for whatever reason the topic of a dystopia came up, and I asked him if he knew what a dystopia was, and this is very telling. My lad's 9, so I was proud of him that he did, or he seemingly did. He said a dystopia is like the future, and it's like, yeah, man, you've got the general idea, but at the same time, that's not actually what a dystopia means. But I thought it was fascinating that that's what he perceived it to be. Because the funny thing was, I'm asking him, and then when he said that answer, it's alright, it's come to a road that's been closed, funny enough. That's kind of on topic, because that's kind of what the topic is, with all this control. I'll go into that in a minute, the shutting down of the roads and all that kind of stuff. So I've got to divert my route now. So yeah, the dystopia. His idea of it is the future. And like I said, I had to question for myself what a dystopia truly meant, because I kind of feel like I did, but actually I don't truly know the absolute definition of it. The true definition, if you look up a dystopia, is purely, plain and simply, a bad place. It's not the future. But if you ask most people what they perceive a dystopia to be, it's generally a future vision. In which case you have to ask yourself, why do we always perceive the future to be a dystopia? A bad place. An unfair place. A place where we're up against it. Quite often a scientific, technocratic control system, a totalitarian control system, that kind of thing. Almost an apocalyptic as well, you could sort of throw into that equation. Why? Why is the future always a dystopia? You know, I've said about the Marvel series, that's just one example, but science fiction in general, and why, you have to ask yourself that question, why is it always the same vision, pretty much? Why are we now living in what has always been perceived to be a dystopia? Why are they hell-bent on taking us there, when a dystopia is a bad place? Literally, that's what it means. Why do we need to go to a bad place? I think one understanding of that is, I've always understood that a dystopia comes hand in hand with a utopia. I think I mentioned this on a previous video, and it's kind of alluded to on the sort of definition of a dystopia, is that it is it comes hand in hand with a utopia, and that would be, I think, one of the reasons why certain powers shouldn't be hell-bent on creating a dystopia, because in the process of creating a dystopia is for us. At the same time, they're building a utopia for themselves. You know, let's go with the film sort of angle. A great idea, an example of a dystopia would be the Hunger Games. And the Hunger Games is perfect, actually, because the Hunger Games has all the zones, the districts. Hunger Games paints the picture of a society where there are those that have and those that have not, and the class difference. There's people that literally live in a city where they have all the food in the world, to the point that they take medication that makes you throw up so you can eat more food. Meanwhile, all these districts and zones are hungry, hence the Hunger Games, you know. And I think that's where we're kind of at and where we're going now. You know, this cost of living nonsense is getting to the point where like everything is doubling, and that's just your food, and then everything else in conjunction with that. You know, your travel, your cost of life generally is all escalating, almost doubled just within a year, doubled. So you've got to ask yourself, who is to gain from this dystopian, zoned out nightmare that they're trying to build? And why are we allowing it? quiet about it. It's kind of it's coming from every angle, all under the guise of this climate. One thing I used to always have leveled at me, I've been what you would I'm in that bracket. If you want to put people in boxes, I'm a conspiracy theorist, I'm a conspiracy analyst, but I also have conspiracy theories. So I got no problem with being a conspiracy theorist. If you want to put me in that box, that's fine, because I got lots of theories about conspiracies. I think that's a conversation I was having with my son about conspiracies, and he was coming up with some conspiracy theories, and just having a conversation about what a conspiracy theory is and the difference between a conspiracy theory and a conspiracy fact, and people's perception of what a conspiracy theorist is wrong, because a conspiracy theorist is perceived to be somebody, I think, generally that just believes in nonsense, when a conspiracy theorist actually means that you just have theories about conspiracy. Literally what it means. So where you get this perception of believing in the wacky and the ludicrous and being a bit crazy. Read the same films that teach you that a dystopia is the future. Yeah. But one thing that I've always had levelled at me is the constant rebuff from people is that if there was a global conspiracy, everybody would have to be in on it, and they seem to see that as some sort of impossibility. Funny enough, I've had that conversation before, and I used to say, well, if you're having that conversation and you see that but don't see how everybody is in on it, then that explains it, because that means you're in on it. You might not realise you're in on it, but you're in on it. But we're at a point now where if you can't see that everybody's in on it, everybody is in on it. You know, the whole carbon, net zero, all that kind of stuff, the climate change. Every company is saying we're in on it now. We're going carbon neutral. We're pushing forward with this agenda. Everybody is in on it. They're not hiding it anymore. Literally everybody's in on it. I just went for some food somewhere the other day. Where was it? Flipping Nando's. You go in the toilet and they got some sign saying how they're pushing for net zero. That's in on it. That's part of the process. Net zero is what? Zero carbon? Remember, we're carbon-based life forms. Remember, carbon is a fuel of life. So you've got to start understanding what they're really telling you when they're trying to strive for this zero carbon. You know, Thanos. But I want to just start raising awareness of this nightmare that's unfolding, because it is a nightmare. Now, I watched a video yesterday, and it's kind of pushed me to get back into action, because I've been planning to, like I said, for whatever reason it's just not happened. But this video was from was it Jeff Buys Cars, I think, and I really enjoyed this video. I've seen a lot of videos from content creators that are now pushing a conspiratorial narrative, even though they're not conspiratorial. Now, Jeff Buys Cars, I get the gist from only just discovering him yesterday and just getting that quick little look into what he's doing, that he's like a car and driving enthusiast. Funny enough, I discovered first video I saw about 15-minute cities in Oxford was from somebody. He was a motorbike enthusiast. So these people aren't putting together content of a conspiratorial nature. They're, you know, they've got their niches in completely different things, but what they're now doing is putting the dots together and seeing how their general way of life is affected. And I think that's what people need to start doing. So I like these different niches coming together, because that's where we need to unite and see that we're all affected. And I've always been pushing the conspiratorial angle, because that's just where I'm coming from. But I like to see and present people that aren't but still are, because that's where you see the reality of it. If you've got somebody that's you know, there's a lot of conspiratorial angles that go too far. I could be one of those. I go quite far with it because that's the way I see things, the way I do things, and the way it's been. I've been on this for a long time, so I've gone deep down this rabbit hole as such, and it's deep. It's very deep. So I'm not going to go there right now because it's a long way to go. But this Jeff Buys Cars video basically was presenting he was informing us that there is or has been or is or was, there's 3 different factors that he was presenting. 1 was the digital ID, 2 was the I think sort of road charges that's coming about, and 3 was the digital currency. Now the digital ID was the important one because basically they brought out a government I don't know what you call it, a survey, a consensus, some sort of option to have a feedback and so say have a say. But the period of time that it was given out for was literally, they come out in January and it ends today. So it would seem like we're too late with that, but to be honest, I think that's the whole dirty tactic, and that in itself should be quite revealing. Why are they sneaking something so fundamental kind of under the radar? And then part of the Jeff Buys Cars video was also, I think he was presenting it as a bit of homework to do, where the survey that you do basically was answering questions. So you had to read the legislation to answer the questions. And I think that's how they operate with these things. It's kind of banking on 2 things. 1 is our ignorance, and 2 is our incompetence. So it's not easy to understand what you're even answering. So in this instance, he was helping you by actually providing a kind of a template for you to have with the answers. But ultimately, we need to, you know, not just rely on other people to do our work for us, and to do it for yourselves. I went on there and I got the gist, and within all these different questions I just put the same answer. I don't want to be enslaved. Digital ID is enslavement. I don't consent to enslavement for myself and for my children, and I just put that answer on every single one for quickness sake, because literally I thought 1st of March, doing the thing yesterday, maybe I'd already ran out of time. But possibly we've still got today to do it. But you know, like I said, I made the video about the digital highways and all that kind of stuff. I said about how they've been building smart motorways for the last 10 years. So I'm not sure. I think that these forums are there to give you the illusion that you have a say. You made a valid analogy that if that little bit of rope they give you, you've got to pull on it. So let's try, but let's not give up also on the basis that the window of opportunity seems to have passed, because we still got to voice our dissent rather than just blindly consent to this nightmare. So let's keep up the fight, and let's not let them continue to roll it out. You know, let's who knows how and what they was trying to do with all the scamdemic. I mean, I do know what they was trying to do, and this is the whole point, is that this climate change nonsense is basically trying to do the same thing they did with that. But my point was going to be that maybe they wasn't so successful with that, so they've had to jump to the next phase of forcing this dystopia upon us. You know, they've got documents where, and this is a crucial document I think people need to take into consideration, said the World Economic Forum was coming out saying how the COVID-19 was the ideal opportunity to bring out about this digital dystopia. Now they had a document in, I don't know exactly when, but come out in 2019, prior to the scamdemic, plandemic, And they literally alluded to the fact in this document. I'll see if I can find a link to it and maybe attach it to this video if I have the time. But they suggested that a small percentage of people, like, I don't know, like 10% of people will be prepared to accept this digital ID and digital dystopian nightmare that they're trying to bring about. So they know that people don't want it. They know that. So why are they trying to do it? But anyway, within that same breath of saying that people won't want it, they said they'll need a crisis. And conveniently, they had one. You know, they had one. A few months down the line, remember they had the simulation of the scamdemic a few weeks before they had the scamdemic, conveniently, and they simulated how they would have to bring about all these responses to the problem, the old problem, reaction, solution scenario. So, you know, I'm not saying, well, I guess when I call it a pandemic, I am saying they planned it, but I just call it a pandemic because any which way, from when they had a simulation, they were planning for it. So you make of that what you want. Was it premeditated? You know, I have my opinions, but go look in it for it yourself. And one thing that is beyond dispute was the convenience of it all and how it's been exploited one way or the other. And the fact that they brought out the book COVID-19 The Great Reset, literally telling you how convenient the pandemic was to bring about this digital dystopian nightmare that they want to bring about. So point being, they tried it. They tried all the track and trace and the vaccine passports and all that rubbish, and we kind of seem to have dodged a bullet with that one. And who knows whether that was always the plan, that we go to this anyway, or whether we dodged that because people didn't accept it. And I think that's where we got to go with this next one. We can't accept it. We got to fight it. The fight is on now. You got to start seeing it for what it is, and you got to start putting your energy into this. Kids or no kids, this is all of our future, because it's here and now. It is here and now. So I'm gonna leave this for the moment on that. It's going on a bit longer than I try and keep the videos to a 20-minute maximum, and I know I've exceeded that, so maybe I have to break this one into 2 or something. Maybe I'll do some addendums. You know, it's an ongoing thing. So for now, that's peace and love. Let's stay aware, people. Stay awake, and let's stay free, because our freedoms are already slipping away. But you know, it's gonna get a lot worse, and it's already pretty bad, man. So, you know, let's not let it get any worse. The fight is on, so let's fight.